Hello everyone, I apologize for not being there tonight. However, this presentation will go over everything that I was going to discuss. So these are our honors geometry modules, and it's kind of set up like last year where within each module there's going to be one or multiple common core state standards that we learn within it. So for example, in Module 1, there's going to be 3 Common Core State Standards that we learn. So there will be 3 tests within that module. Our notes are going to be set up similar to last year, where we have up here it says Module 1, so we have the module listed, and we have the Common Core State Standard that we're working on. And then this is a cover page on your students' notes. It tells you the learning target for the levels that we're working on, and it tells you all the assignments that are within the standard, so the plan. And we will go over the due dates at the start of every standard. The only difference is the practices are now not within the notes packets. The practices are going to be worksheets that your students get every day. So the only thing that's involved in our notes packets are just our notes that your students will be taking over the Edpuzzle video. We are actually going to start this standard tomorrow. So tomorrow your student's going to receive the notes packet, but they will also receive a review packet now at the beginning of every standard. And so with the review packet, it's to help your student prepare for the test on this standard. And the review packet will be due the day of the test. The reason why I give it at the beginning of the standard is so your student can start working on it right away. Now these are what the worksheets are going to be looking like. So with the worksheets, your student will have some circled problems and some problems that are not circled. The circled problems your students will complete first within their groups, so it's group work problems, and the non-circled problems will be individual work problems. And so your student's gonna get a new worksheet every day to practice the skills that they learned in the Edpuzzle videos the nights before. This is what a typical agenda would look like. And so, for example, and some agendas for a standard may be longer. For this first one, this agenda is pretty short. But this gives you an example of how, or of what they're going to be doing every day. So we would start a standard by first having your student complete one or multiple Edpuzzles. They're going to take notes over some Edpuzzles. And the next day in class, your student will get the level, in this case, level 1 through 3 practice worksheet that they will do the circled problems in groups, and then they will move on to the individual problems after that. And then if they don't finish that in class, they would need to finish it up for homework in addition to the next Edpuzzle or Edpuzzles. And so then the next day in class, same thing. They'll get a worksheet, they'll practice it with their groups, and then they'll practice some individual work. And then if they don't finish that in class, they'll need to finish it for homework, but then they'll also take notes over the next Edpuzzle. Then when we get towards the end, there may not be any more Edpuzzles left. In that case, they can start on the review packet. They should actually be working on the review packet the entire unit or standard, but there will be times where they have multiple days to do the review sheet or packet during class. Then we'll designate a day or 2 sometimes for a review day to help them get prepared for the summative. So what should students be doing while they're watching Edpuzzles? They're going to be typically watching these Edpuzzles at home. So here's what you should expect for your student to do at home with you guys. So they need to be taking detailed notes over the entire Edpuzzles. If they are not watching their Edpuzzles to the very end, then it is going to be counted as a missing assignment. I do not get the results of the Edpuzzles unless your student watches it to the very, very end. Also, they should be taking notes over the Edpuzzles because every review day, I'm going to do a note check. And if your student does not have their notes completed, then it will be a missing assignment. During the Edpuzzles, they also should be listening to the Edpuzzle. I do not want your student relying on the subtitles. I want them to actually listen to the material and understand the material that way. When students rely on the subtitles while they're also trying to take notes, they're not getting a firm grasp on the material. They can also rewind, pause, and take breaks when needed. They can also rewatch the videos. Sometimes students like to rewatch the videos just for studying purposes, and that's okay. But they also need to be writing down questions that they have during the lesson and bring those questions to class the next day, so that way the teacher can start the class by addressing the questions that the students had from the previous night's Edpuzzle. So during class, typically your student will be doing the worksheets. The worksheets are split into the group and individual work like you saw in the previous slides. So the circled problems are the group work. During group work, your student should actively participate in their assigned group. They should be respectful of other group members' thoughts, and they should work together. They should not be copying off of one another because then they're not truly actually learning the material. So if your student is struggling, they don't understand a problem, then that's when a group member helps them by teaching them how to do the problem instead of just letting them copy the work down. Now with group work, when a group finishes their group work, they will then go on my Canvas and they will look at the answer key to check their answers to make sure that they did it correctly. Once they're done checking their answers, they will move on to their individual work. It's going to be done alone, and it should be done mindfully, meaning that they're not rushing through the problems. I would like them not to have the answer key up while they do the individual work because I don't want them copying my answer key. I want them actually trying the problems on their own. Now, if your students do not finish the group or individual work during class, they do need to do it at home. So the next day, I'm going to collect the worksheet and I'm going to see if your student completed the whole worksheet. They need to complete every single problem, and they need to show work if every single problem if a problem requires them to show work. That's how they would earn a complete. So if they don't finish the assignment in class, they need to finish it at home. So what a typical day will look like in geometry is the students will enter the classroom, they'll sit in their assigned seats, and they will take out their notes, worksheet, pencil, and calculator to get ready for class to start. When class starts, the teacher is going to ask if there were any questions from the previous night's Edpuzzle video. And if there were questions, then the teacher is going to go over those in front of the whole class. If there's not any questions, then what's going to happen is the teacher will just right away pass out the worksheet, which is going to practice the skills from the previous night's Edpuzzle. And then so students are going to start with the group work. They'll do the group work and they'll check their answers on the answer key once they're done with the group work, and that's on Canvas. And then when they're done with the group work and check their answers, then they'll work on their individual work. And sorry, this shouldn't say type their answers into Canvas. They will look at Canvas and use the answer key to check their answers. And then when the worksheet's completed, the student can start their Edpuzzle for homework. Now, Infinite Campus versus Canvas. So Infinite Campus, you're going to use this platform to check to see if your student has any missing assignments. Edpuzzles and worksheets will either be marked as missing or complete. So if you see a missing, that means that your student did not complete that assignment. You'll also use Infinite Campus to check to see how your students did on their summative assessments, their tests. For Canvas, you can use this platform to find extra copies of everything that I pass out to your student in class. So if your student misplaces something, you can actually go on Canvas and print out another copy at home. You can also use Canvas to find all my Edpuzzles and all my answer keys to the worksheets. And then you'll also use this platform to find the extra worksheets that are needed for retakes. Tests, these are done in class alone. Your students cannot use their notes, but they can use a calculator. They only get a full class period, no extra time. And these tests are 100% of your student's grade. They are broken up by levels, and your student can retake each test only once. So retakes. In order for your student to even have the opportunity to retake, they must follow 3 rules. They must have all assignments marked as complete in Infinite Campus by the day of their original test. So if your student has missing assignments, they have until the day of the test to get their missing assignments in and completed. Now, they would need to turn it in at the beginning of the class period on the day of the test. If they don't have their assignments turned in at the beginning of the class period, then your student will not have the opportunity to retake. Your student also needs to stay on task during class. So for example, if your student is playing games on their Chromebook when they should be doing geometry, then I have the right to revoke their opportunity to retake. Or if they're working on an assignment from a different class when they should be working on geometry, same thing, because they're not showing me that they actually are here to learn geometry and they're not putting in the effort to study and to learn. So they need to stay on task. They also need to attempt every problem on their original test. So they cannot leave any questions on their original test blank. That shows me that they did not put an effort into those problems, and that shows me that they didn't study how to do those problems. So the only time where I would make an exception on that rule number 3 is if they just truly ran out of time and that's why they didn't finish their test. Then I would allow them to retake. So if, excuse me, if your student abides by those 3 rules, then they must complete some activities in order to do a retake. So on Canvas, there's a relearning worksheet for every standard, and your student must complete that worksheet, and they must check their answers in class at least 1 day prior to the retake. So I don't have the answer keys to the relearning worksheets on Canvas. They would need to actually come in and check their answers to see if they did okay on that relearning worksheet. And then they'll also need to complete reflective test corrections, which means that they would need to correct their mistakes on their original test, and their corrections need to be 100% accurate as well. And they only, your student, once they meet those, they would only have to retake the levels that they did not pass the first time. So if they already passed level 1, then they would just need to retake the levels 2, 3, and 4. Great, that brings us to the end of everything that I was going to discuss at Back to School Night. If you have any questions, you can email me. Thank you, have a great night.